Hi there everyone, welcome to my cottage garden located here in New South Wales, Australia. And I've spent a bit of time out here this week because oh my goodness, there is so much to do now that we are only a few weeks away from springtime. And with the warmer days and all that rain that we got over the past few days, the garden is really starting to wake up now from its winter slumber. This garden update is absolutely jam-packed and it will include taking a look at aloe vera plants. I'll share with you an upcycle garden decor idea, and as well as that I'll give you an update on that new garden bed that you helped me out with last week. So just sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it now. I have some aloe vera growing in this container. It was once a toolbox, but now I'm using it as a planter. I think its bright orange colour really makes the green foliage of this succulent pop. And I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I also really love the way these pieces here have gone all rusty. I know this aloe vera plant doesn't look the best at the moment. I have a lot of this going on with holes and browning as well, but I'm not worried about that because once these plants settle into this container and all the new growth fills out the space, I'll cut off these older pieces and then I think it will look pretty nice. If we take a look inside, you can see that they kind of form in rosettes, and I have this plant in a semi-shaded area. They love free draining soil, that's really important, and I tend to let the soil dry out between watering. So during the summertime I would probably water it a bit more often, maybe once a week, than I would during the winter, where pretty much I don't really bother watering it at all. I'm going to harvest a piece of this now and we'll have a chat about what this plant is used for. I've just cut it open. I used a sharp knife to remove the side pieces and then slice it in half, and then with my knife I removed this gel piece in the center, which you can see here. And it's this part of the plant that's loved by many for its medicinal properties. It is packed with vitamins and minerals, and you may notice that it's used a lot as an ingredient in many facial and body creams. It's also meant to be great at healing wounds. Some people use it on sunburn, and you can also get it in beverages. Oh, come off. So when you consume it in a beverage, it is meant to really help boost your immune system, and it's also meant to be great for people who have tummy issues. We'll check back on this plant in a few weeks when hopefully it will look much better than it does now at the moment. It's been quite a while since I've stood in this area. It has been so overgrown since summer and autumn time, and this week I cleared it out a little bit. I still have quite a lot to go, as you can see here. This was once a pathway and now the grass has taken it over, so I'll need to pull that all out, put down some cardboard and start over again for summer. Cardboard is definitely my friend out in the garden. It really helps to suppress weeds, and that's what I'll be doing here when I put it down. It will block them all out, and then I'll put some bark over the top, and once that's fixed up again, it will make a more defined pathway around here and help to emphasize the garden beds. Oh, look at here. It's pretty bad. These archways went in not that long ago, maybe a year or two ago, and I always had a long-term plan, which is growing here on this side. I'll take a closer look in a minute. It's a lovely Australian native, but while I was waiting for that to grow, I used this archway for annual edible crops. There were beans and tomatoes growing on this side. In fact, there still is quite a few tomatoes hanging on here to its dying plant. We could still eat these if we wanted. I could harvest the whole lot of them. However, their skin is pretty tough now and they're not as sweet as they once were. I'm in no rush to pull this plant out because although our human palates may be unsatisfied consuming these, they are in high demand by our feathered friends. Often when I'm looking out this side window of our kitchen, I can see lots of little birds tucking into these tomatoes. So I'll be leaving this plant here as long as I can. I know it doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing, but I'm telling you, I think sometimes your imperfections in the garden can bring you so much joy. And here's the evergreen climbing plant on the other side of the archway. It's called Pandoria Snowbells, and you can see it's covered in little buds, which will hopefully be open by next week or the week after. And they are a white trumpet shape flower. As many of you know, I love using baskets to grow annual flowers, which goes really well with my cottage style garden. But we know that these baskets aren't designed to be holding soil, let alone receiving so much water. And often what happens is eventually the bottom part here tends to rot and falls out. When that happens, we're not able to use it as a container anymore. Here's how you can use these bottomless baskets again. I have one here in this little patch where I've got a lot of self-seeded plants that are kind of taken over. I was hoping to have these little white daisy type flowers as a border, but the garden has a mind of its own and I'm fine with that. But I did want to kind of emphasize this plant a bit more. So what I did with one of my baskets that I lost the bottom was I just placed it over this in-ground plant. The best part about using these is that you can move them around your garden. So you can see here the base is gone and I can just pop this over any particular plant that I want to highlight that's in bloom. I'm out the front garden and we're looking at the pride of Mandaria plant with its long flower spikes, and weaved in amongst its foliage I have this pelargonium plant, which has filled in any little gaps that were once there. But for today, I'm not really focusing too much on that. I want to show you what's happening here at the front of this very messy, neglected garden bed. I made a great discovery during the week when I was assessing what jobs had to be done in this part of the garden. Look what's happening down here. At first glance, I just thought that all of this was your regular grass that had made its way past the garden edging. But on closer inspection, when I felt the foliage, I was delighted to realise that this is actually bunnytail grass. This is what they look like, and you can use these in dried flower arrangements. And you can see here why it's given the name bunnytail. I want to show you this. So in here I have some bunnytail grass seedlings, which I sowed the seeds back in autumn. I spent a bit of time and effort making sure the soil was moist for the seeds to germinate, taking care of them until they were big enough to pot up into this container. In some ways, I guess, I kind of forced this to happen. But what's happening here, it's almost like the garden is talking to me, telling me that it's now ready to grow this ornamental grass. And how lucky am I to get all of these plants here that I can dig up and divide. There's plenty in there. I'll be able to leave some here and then transfer some others elsewhere in the garden. I've just let the chickens out. They're really happy at the moment because look how muddy it is all around the garden. They've been able to find lots of little grubs and insects to dig up and eat. Actually, something really amazing happened this week here in New South Wales. We are now officially out of drought. We've had so much rain in many parts that it's been declared that we're no longer in drought, which is absolutely incredible. And I'm still really aware of the fact that there are so many areas around Australia that are really dry. They've hardly seen any rainfall. I will never take it for granted how fortunate we are here in this part of New South Wales. Autumn, come here to me. Come here. What are you looking at? This is the garden bed near the broken old greenhouse. It's starting to fill out nicely. You can see I've absolutely crammed in the plants, and that's a great way of helping to suppress weeds and giving you a bit less work in the garden if you put them really close together, kind of ignoring the spacing rules, cramming them in, and then there just isn't that much room in between them for your weeds to grow. It's a bit more low maintenance. The mulberry tree is happy over here. I noticed that it is full of little berries that are forming along the stems, and this is a great tree to have in your garden. It can get quite large, up to 10 meters in height. But what I love about it is it's really low maintenance. It's a drought tolerant deciduous tree, and when I brought this tree into my garden I was warned not to put it near any driveway because the berries can stain the pavement. I'm now over by the entryway to the raised garden bed area. I have my table and chair set up here at the moment, which is kind of doubling as my laundry basket stand right here underneath the washing line. And the reason why I like sitting here at the moment is because of the smell of these flowers. It's another acacia or wattle, absolutely packed with flowers. I would say there's thousands of them, and it's just so calming and relaxing to be able to sit here and enjoy them. I'm now standing in the raised garden bed area just to give you a quick update on what's happening over here. I showed you this part of the garden last week, asking for suggestions on what flowering plants I could put in here. I really love the idea of putting some roses as well as some annual flowers and maybe some edible perennials too. So thank you so much for all your suggestions. You can see I have cleared out the junk, but I haven't spread out the mulch yet, and that's because I moved some cuttings that I did this week into here, and I'm going to bury them underneath the mulch. There isn't a ton of food, but there is quite a bit that I can harvest in the garden, like here with these purple tops. I have so much silver beet planted all around the garden that although most of them are quite small, if I harvest a couple of leaves here and there, it's enough to make a meal out of it. There's plenty of celery here, where I can just pick a few of them off, and I use these in making, you know, if I make soup, or especially if you make spaghetti bolognese, I can hide this in along with some carrots if I cut them up small, and the kids will eat them. I also have down here lots of bok choy. There's leeks too, but they're still a bit on the small side. And similar to the silver beet, I have so much of these spring onions planted all over the place. Plenty of the quick crops like radishes. These ones are particularly fun to pull out. I always look at them as for satisfaction wise a good replacement for carrots, because you get that same feeling pulling these out. Watch this, come on. Oh, how good is that? Oh, this one's a bit bent. It took a wrong turn somewhere. In my containers I've got more spring onions, got a bit of lettuce. I also have some bok choy. I'm waiting on the baby beets to grow, and look what happened over here. These were my pickling onions and pretty much they're gone. I might even re-sow a few more there and see how they go. There's rhubarb, and down beside the rhubarb are the black Spanish radishes. I haven't pulled one of these out, but you know what, I'm just going to do it now. And I can't remember, you can get these in two types. You can get them round or like a long cylinder. I cannot remember which ones they are, but I'm going to pull this one out. Well, that's my question answered. It's definitely the long one. And of course I have all the citrus trees, like the orange tree here. I also have a lime and the lemon tree, and I'm telling you, after all the rain that we got, I swear these lemons have like doubled in size. And I had a bit of a feel of one yesterday and it feels nice and juicy inside. That was a very quick look at some of the food that I'm growing at the moment here in late winter. Thank you so much for watching again this week. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you again next Friday.